Hi, everyone. In this recording, we are going to chat a little bit about the practicalities of using songwriting in research. Um, Again, reflecting on the experience we had by writing songs and recording songs that made it then eventually to Feathers EP, so part of the That's Me project between the University of Wolverhampton and BCU, so Birmingham City University. I guess practically from the beginning to where we are now when we have the EP and we can share it with the public. As a researcher, it's not something I've ever done before, and there was a lot of, I guess, thinking about resources and practical steps to make sure it's possible to do it in this way, because this is definitely not something that is part of academic, this is how you do research. It's so if you are studying songwriting with Sophie and her team at ICMP, yeah, you're in great hands. They're great experts. That's what they do. But for the rest, I think, especially in academia that doesn't look at songwriting, that's not their discipline. Probably songwriting is the only discipline where they would feel safely that they know the practical steps. For the rest of us, there's a few things we need to think about that just made it a success that otherwise could have just sort of fallen completely offside. So one of the things is your budget, right? So resourcing wise, you would want to have a budget that is allocated to pay your songwriters. So songwriters who come into this project will be facilitators as much as you are. They will have the craft, the know-how, the skill set to work in the space of non-commercial songwriting. So I would recommend when you interview songwriters to have these conversations that they're not coming only with the knowledge about commercial songwriting. They have to have at least in their own practice a variety of songs they have written maybe or just things that project-wise things that they have done that also perhaps shows their affinity to non-commercial songwriting. But when you are sort of selecting your pool of songwriters, you will, without a budget, you cannot be expecting people to do this because they will have fees to come to you wherever you have the venue. So there's travel cost. It takes them away from most of our musicians are freelance, so it takes them away from other paying jobs. So you have to keep that in mind. For us, the practicality of this was that we had 4 hour writing sessions, which allowed for a break in between. So during the session, so at least half an hour break. Um, and it seemed to be a good enough fit. The 4 hours, not too short, not too long. And we had 2 of those sessions for each of the pairs, the songwriter and the storyteller. So we thought about the budgeting in a way that would allow paying for people to come together, pay the songwriter, and uh, and one of the practical questions you will have to answer is how many songwriting sessions do you want to facilitate for individual storytellers? We have, through conversations and reflections, found it to be better to have more than one. Um, if you have just the one, everything we spoke about from the Safe Spaces Pledge is limited. You're not allowing for that connection between the songwriter and storyteller to fully develop. You're not allowing for that relationship to grow and then put the storyteller in a position where they can really explore their voice. So if you can, it is preferred to have more than one songwriting sessions. So we had 2 songwriting sessions for each of the pairs, but then we also had one recording day. So where songwriter storytellers came together and then with our audio engineer did the recording in one of the studios. So that is something you have to budget for as well. If your university or institution has somebody that can offer those services, you don't have to budget for it. But if they don't, you will have to have a budget also to get the sound gal, I'm not going to say guy, sound gal, right? So somebody who will facilitate the recording and then at the end, the mastering of songs as well. And that was our Joe at the University of Wolverhampton, who facilitated all of that and has been incredibly important to this process as well. And so you have to have a budget for songwriters. Think about the number of sessions. For us, it was really important to have more than one. And the other thing is think about the spaces you will be able to use. Some universities will have studio spaces and you'll be allowed to sort of use those facilities. Think also about the timings. So if there are other things at the university happening and they might be recording podcasts. So even if you don't have music being part of the department, if somebody sort of scheduled to record podcasts, they'll be using those spaces, studio spaces. So think about the timings, the scheduling around that. When do you need your songs to be recorded as well? So for us, it did work out, but we were working around the schedule quite a bit because Joe was recording some other things in that studio, which means you have to have enough lead time when you're organizing the schedule with everyone involved. There was a lot of admin around who has time when, and how the recording can happen. So give yourself enough time in the research project to put all those arrangements in place. And then once people are in the room, they'll be able to record. So budget, spaces. If you don't have access to music studios, which will have an appropriate soundproofing and nothing from outside is coming in, you might just get a quiet room for the songwriting parts where the songwriter and the storyteller can also use their laptops for certain parts and they can just talk about building the song. But you will need a studio. We think you will need a studio to do the recording of the songs. So I think those are sort of the practicalities of what to think about. So the budget, the space, how long it takes. Do people need to stay the night? So don't organize. If you know that people are coming up to you from a very far away, 2 hours on the train, do not have a 9 a.m. session and things like that. That for us was also treating everyone with respect and allowing for their circumstances in life to sort of not stop them from being part of the project, which means if you want to think about being inclusive, be inclusive also in how you design the scheduling, the travel. You take all of that into consideration, and do not do things last minute because that usually means you're not being inclusive because only people who can respond to your last minute demand will be included. Which I know at the F list and the way we organize our events, it's really important for us, and that's why we have so much lead time when it comes to call for papers and things like that. With that in mind, specifically. So with some of those sort of like the facilitator hat observations, Naisha, Rejoice, any practical tips in before the session, during the session, after the session?
Yeah, I'm happy to go first on this. So, I think from the songwriter's perspective, just being attentive, actively listening to what the storyteller is saying, allowing them to speak and share their side of the story, express their emotions. It's all part of the process. It's a very beautiful process just to make sure that they are feeling heard, feeling respected, and that you can include that when you're writing songs. I would say the second thing is just to be open minded, to make sure that even your process for writing songs, just set that aside because it can differ. I think for the two songwriters that I worked with, storytellers that I worked with, it was very different processes. So just being open minded and agile to work around the process, because it's very beautiful the more we allow them to speak and express themselves. I think practical tips is just to have a document where you record all of their thoughts, all of their emotions, everything that they said. So with everybody that I worked with, I had a document where I recorded everything that they said. And it just is a very good reference point when it comes to looking at their themes, finding synergies, links with what they've said, and also expressing that in your songs. And also having, I guess, a basis that you can record off of. So we just kind of used voice memos. If I had an idea, I would just put that in this voice and then would play that again. And I kind of sent it to everybody throughout the weeks when we were developing it. So we had something to work off of so that when you're ideas are made, they're not just kind of going into thin air. You have records about everything that you've written. Yeah, I think that's it from my side. Just making sure you have a document to work off of and making sure that you're listening to the storyteller as well. That's what I'd say.
Thank you so much, Naisha.
So I think for me, reaffirming the safe space principles so that everyone is grounded and accountable. Warm-up exercises like free writing or sharing stories, just to help ease that creative flow. Because, like I said, as a non-songwriter at the time, you feel your mind's kind of all over the place, and there's part of you. Well, I felt like I need to be doing something, bringing something. And it's almost like I'm forcing the process, but by relaxing, it kind of helps you more if you just relax into it. The workshops that you mentioned previously, that I attended really helped as well. So stuff that Kiz was doing, and just there was a lot of free writing in that, and word association. Um, Brenda played games with us where we like were reacting to scenarios and things like that. But also just being mindful to be not so judgmental on yourself, get the ideas down, just get it down. Because at the end of the day, as you go on, you can shape it. You may even shelf it, but at least you've got it down. It's better to have it down, written down, than not to have it written down at all. And also, you should, no, giving yourself time if you need to leave the room. Sometimes I found that I needed a bit of silence just so I could think and process, because sometimes the best ideas come when you're in silence. That's how I work. Um, but so before the session, I've put that, put down images, phrases, feelings that you want to explore, but don't pressurize yourself again. Just write them down. Because with this as well, there is literally no wrong answer as such. You're not being quizzed or anything like that. For me, I used a lot of song references. Music is pretty much everything to me. So I use song references. I like this song and I want to write a song along this style. I found it was easy for me to say that. So then, and then play the song to the songwriter so they could hear where I was going, because I couldn't assume that they knew every song that I knew. And also there was an age difference as well. So there's going to be songs that I know that they won't know, or vice versa. But I also live by the words of like John Miles when he said, music will be my first love, and it'll be my last, because that's how it felt during the process. And it it built up that love for it. I've always wanted to know how to do these things, and then having that time to do it and see it come together was quite an amazing process. I think you also, before the session, just be there in a timely manner. You've touched upon that, you know, people and songwriters are coming from all over the UK, especially in our case. And I just think we need to be mindful that, people are traveling, so let's be there in a good time. Also, it gives you a chance just to try and relax, decompress, not coming all stressed from traveling in and all the rest of it. But, it's also just being mindful about the people you're working with. Um, and I just think you need to be present in the sessions because it benefits you in the long run. Try not to be distracted, because you're not going to get the best out of the session. You're missing out on so much. And when like you said, like, having time, not booking anything after the session, that was really important, because it meant that you could like take that time, go home if you need to, or go for food. But you need that space just to decompress. I think reflection on what felt safe, what felt challenging, and what sparked curiosity, because you have these ideas of all these things you want to do, but then when you get into it, you're actually, oh, actually, that's inspiring me. Even a color, a smell, a sound, anything can. And then regarding after as well, I also put that, you should listen to the demos when you're in the session, when you go home, maybe if you've got time, sit back, listen to it, because it might inspire you to want to change things. Like Rejoice said, she was sending me voice notes, I'm sending this stuff back. And that it keeps the collaboration and the co-production still going. Because even though obviously we're not physically together, we're still connected via this work that we're doing. So it's almost like we're tethered together kind of thing, which was really good. And sorry, tips between the sessions, once again, I have to keep going back to safe space, thinking about the psychology and just the safety of it, being making sure that you're keeping yourself safe. As much as, there are people like the academic lead, like yourself, and we're all here, we're all connecting, we're all talking, but making sure that you're okay and being comfortable to say you're not okay, because at the end of the day, it's your safety that you need to be concerned about. I said like keep a creative journal as well. Um, I have a lot of notebooks and that was jotting down things, and it really helped. And look back at what you did in the previous sessions if you can. Think about where you were. Go back to the music. Music, I can pinpoint certain points in my life due to songs and stuff like that. So however you can find your connection back to what you're doing, find it. And just stay in contact with people. It's really important. Yes, you want to be mindful that obviously you don't want to be bombarding the songwriters constantly, but what we agreed is when we could contact each other and how we contact each other, so via the Safe Space Pledge, we discussed how we could contact each other, because as much as you want to look after your own well-being, you're working with someone, so you should also you should care about their well-being. And I understand that they're not new to this environment, but still, the information that you could be disclosing to them, it could be quite triggering. It could just throw someone off. So just being mindful and just be gentle.
So I'm going to ask a very practical question because as a non-songwriter, so I saw some of you rejoice bringing in your own instruments. How important was that? And Naisha, how was it for you to just sort of come into, did you sort of wear more comfortable clothing? Was that not even a thought? Did you have shoes on, shoes off? Was that a part of the process, right? So anyone who's not sort of a songwriter, right? Do you need to do something so that you feel comfortable in that songwriting space? Or you can just come as you are and it doesn't
Um,
matter.
I came as I am, but I knew that I was writing. So when I'm writing, I am in comfortable clothing. So everything's nice, loose, nice, baggy. Um, and yeah, that's how I was. I set myself up in the room with all the things I needed, drink. I used a laptop, and yeah, that's what worked for me. I just I feel that sometimes we can put too much pressure on ourselves to say that it's got to be this way, because once it's this way, then we can produce. But it's like it doesn't need to be that restrictive. Literally, come as you are and ask questions. I asked a lot of questions, and you may think, oh, this I should know this, but how are you going to know if you've never done it before? So just ask the question, because at the end of the day, that's how you're going to know, and that's how you're going to develop. That's what I found was quite useful.
Thank you. Rejoice, your instruments. Did you bring your guitar and stuff?
Yeah, so I brought my guitar, my acoustic guitar, just for playing in the sessions. And that helped me so much because the way that I hear things is that I can like hear the tunes or like the chords. So especially when I was writing with Naisha, it was actually a beautiful moment because I heard the chords and like I could hear it in my head. So I was just like, oh, do you mind if I just play it out? And then I started playing it. And it was just the most beautiful moment where we both realized like that's it, like that's the sound. And then I don't know, it got a little bit emotional that time. I don't know if you could agree. But yeah, like we were just playing it and it was beautiful because it was like she was speaking, I was singing what she was saying, and it was just really beautiful. So for an instrumental kind of perspective, it was really helpful to have that because it actually facilitated the connection and it was like you were able to hear in real time what we were talking about. So yeah, it was very beautiful and very helpful to bring your instruments from the songwriter's perspective.
Brilliant, thank you. And I was trying to share with everyone what's the title of your song, the two of you writing together. Do you remember?
Yes,
Yes. Do you want to say it?
it's Silent Spotlight.
There we go. Vic, your tips for this portion of getting ready to write music and all this.
Well, because I didn't do the practical side of this project, I'm really just in listening mode. But I do know, yeah, I find it very interesting that creativity is so essential to innovation and obviously to music. It is all based on creativity, but somehow we many of us lose or stop being creative or stop playing, which taps into our creativity when we're children. And then we might never access that part of us again. And it sounds like Nisha was able to sort of tap into her creativity in a different um, way. Obviously, with writing as creative as well, but a different side. And I guess I've been having a similar personal experience this year in that I did do one follow-up songwriting session with Luce Barker earlier this year, and yeah, it was the most fantastic, positive, liberating experience, and I hadn't done any songwriting for decades, so it's lovely to tap back into that. It's something that's very very human, very very essential. So wonderful to hear that in research as well, which, as I say, is so essential to the music industry, to innovation, but surely to research as well. We need to have innovative and creative ideas to keep moving forward. So there's lots going on, isn't there, in this project? Yeah, love it.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the things that we were also thinking about songwriting as method is that we're hoping to create empathy. It seems a lot of research when you're dealing with social justice issues or marginalized communities, it seems there's almost a disconnect between what gets supported and prioritized and what doesn't. And we're hoping that we'll harness the power of songwriting, to further support the research findings that we are already doing. So this is not to replace everything else we do as researchers, but it is to sort of add to it and transform who we can reach, the audiences, and how we can sort of share the message from the research findings. Yeah. Well, thank you everyone, and this will be concluding the series the series of the recordings on Sam and That's Me. Thank you.